My cousin abandoned his daughter for years, so I took her in on her 18th birthday. They tried to break us, but I showed them they picked the wrong fight. My wife, 27, and I, 30, live on a pretty big farm. I mean big, we have 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and around 300 acres of land. We set it up with electrical hookups for campers too. We thought, hey, why not make it a spot where the whole family can come and spend time together during summer or for holidays? We even built it like that on purpose, figuring it would be nice to have one place where the family could come and crash for as long as they wanted. You know how some people have those places everyone gravitates toward for gatherings? That's what we wanted, and for a while, it worked out great. Summer would roll around, and we'd have cousins, uncles, aunts, and everyone else filling up the place. There'd be kids running around, people sitting by the fire pit, and campers parked all around the field. It felt like the heart of the family. My cousin Bill, 56, is part of that crowd. He's been around forever and always brought his kids when the family came to visit. He's got this daughter, Alice, who's 18 now. She's from his first marriage. Her mom was an immigrant, didn't have any family here, and unfortunately passed away when Alice was just 2. Really rough stuff. But the thing is, Bill remarried pretty quickly after that. 6 months later, he was with Tanya, who's 52 now. Together, they had 3 more kids. Bill and Tanya's place, though, is like a whole different world. Everything is about their 2 oldest sons and their youngest daughter, the one they had together. Alice? It's like she's invisible over there. I'm not the smartest guy, but even I can see how much they leave her out. It's like she's just there. They do all this fun stuff with their kids, go on trips, sign them up for all sorts of activities, and she's just stuck at home. No vacations, no extracurriculars, nothing that costs a dime. She's pretty much left to fend for herself. I've watched this kid grow up. She's been coming to our farm every summer for the past 4 years. I think it's because Bill and Tanya just want her out of their hair. They're always talking about how she's trouble and how she needs to learn some respect. I'm not saying she's perfect, but man, you can tell she's just trying to get some attention. Here's the thing, Alice is a handful. I won't sugarcoat it. She's got that teenage attitude, like an I don't care about anything vibe, and yeah, she's loud. There have been plenty of times when she'd come over to our place, and I'd hear stories about her blowing up at her stepmom, full-on screaming matches, sometimes over the smallest things. She slams doors, swears up a storm, and honestly, it's like she's always ready to go to battle. You might think, wow, this kid's a brat, and yeah, maybe she acts like one, but you have to look at why she's like this. From what I've seen, the whole acting out thing only started when she realized she wasn't getting the same treatment as her siblings. She's like a totally different person when she's not at home. With other people, teachers, folks on our farm, even strangers, she's polite, quiet, and tries to blend in. But as soon as she gets home, it's like all hell breaks loose. I think about it a lot. It's like she's 2 different people, the Alice when she's out and about, and the Alice when she's around her dad and stepmom. It's no wonder she's upset. What's wild is that they don't even see it. Bill and Tanya act like everything's fine with their kids, but when it comes to Alice, she's always the problem. They never stop to think, hey, maybe we're the ones causing this. Anyway, she started working on our farm summers ago because they needed her out of their space, and honestly, she's not bad at the work. When she has something to focus on, she really puts in the effort. She's great with the animals and has even learned to do a few things like fixing fences and helping out with equipment. She seems to like it here, maybe because it's a break from all the drama at home. We didn't mind having her around. In fact, we liked that she was getting a taste of what it's like to work hard and actually be part of something. This summer, things got a little more intense. She was turning 18, and I knew it was going to be a rough one. Bill had been going on about how he was kicking her out once she turned 18. It'll teach her responsibility, he said. But all I could think was, really, dude? You're kicking her out with no plan, no backup, nothing? Just like that, she's on her own? I'm not sure how that's supposed to teach anyone responsibility. We talked to Alice about it a few times, and you could tell she was nervous. She didn't have anywhere to go, and her dad was serious about kicking her out. We decided that if push came to shove, we'd take her in. My wife and I had the room, and we figured, why not give her a chance to get back on her feet? We could help her figure things out, maybe get her set up for college or a job or something. She deserves that much at least. The night before her birthday, we had her over for dinner. She didn't say much, just picked at her food and looked like she was a million miles away. My wife tried talking to her about her plans after she graduated, but Alice just shrugged. She didn't know, and how could she? Her parents didn't exactly set her up for success. Later that night, my wife and I had a long talk. We knew it might cause trouble if we took her in, but at the same time, we just couldn't leave her hanging. It's like when you see someone drowning, you don't just stand there and watch. That's what it felt like she was drowning, and we had a chance to throw her a life preserver. So, we decided that the next morning, we'd show up at her place with my truck and get her stuff packed. Alice was surprised when we pulled up bright and early. She'd been bracing herself for her dad's boot, but I think she wasn't expecting anyone to actually show up for her. We loaded up her things, just the stuff she'd bought herself or what others had given her. I wasn't about to take anything that Bill and Tanya could say wasn't hers. The whole time, she was quiet, like she was afraid to believe it was actually happening. As we drove away, she finally spoke up. "Thanks," she said, and it was the kind of thanks you don't hear often. It felt like relief, like someone finally lifted this huge weight off her shoulders. I didn't say much back, just told her that we were glad to have her. It felt like the right thing to do. We were giving her a shot to build her own life without all the baggage her parents kept dumping on her. I mean, it's not like we had all the answers or knew what we were doing. We just figured if we could help someone out who needed it, why wouldn't we? And from that moment, everything started to change. But of course, that's when things got complicated. After we got Alice settled in, things started to change pretty fast. At first, it was all good. She was quiet, probably just trying to adjust to being in a new place. We set her up in one of the guest rooms, plenty of space, her own bathroom, and some privacy. My wife and I wanted her to feel like it was her home, not just some temporary setup. We told her that she could stay as long as she needed, and there was no rush for her to figure everything out. Now, here's the thing, I don't have kids, so I'm not going to act like I know everything about raising one, especially not a teenager. But I knew enough to realize she was still carrying a lot of baggage from her dad and stepmom. It's not like you can just erase years of feeling left out and pushed aside just because you're in a new spot. So, we took it slow. We didn't push her to talk about it or anything, but we made sure she knew she could if she wanted to. Alice mostly kept to herself the first few days. She'd come down for meals and help around the farm when we needed an extra hand, but other than that, she was pretty quiet. I figured she was still trying to wrap her head around everything. Can't blame her, really. One minute, she's getting kicked out of her house, and the next, she's living with her cousin and his wife on a farm. That's a lot for anyone, let alone an 18-year-old who's been through what she has. My wife was great about it, though. She's always had a way of making people feel welcome. She'd leave snacks out for Alice, made sure her room was stocked with everything she might need, and even got her a small TV for her room. It was her way of saying, "Hey, you belong here." Slowly but surely, Alice started to warm up. She began opening up a bit more, started helping out with the animals without us even asking, and she'd even join us at the dinner table with a smile now and then. I'd love to say that everything was smooth sailing from there, but of course, that's when Bill and Tanya started getting wind of what was happening. It didn't take long. I mean, word travels fast in our family, especially when you've got a big place like ours where people are always coming and going. They must have heard from someone that Alice was staying with us, and well, they didn't take it too well. The first time I heard from Bill was a couple of days after we moved Alice in. He called me up, and it was tense right from the start. No hey, how are you? Or small talk, just straight to the point. What's this I hear about Alice staying with you? He asked, his voice with that tone like he was already mad before I even said anything. I wasn't going to lie. Yeah, she's here. You said she had to leave when she turned 18, and she didn't have anywhere else to go, so we figured we'd help her out. He let out this big sigh, like he was annoyed. You know that's not helping her. We were trying to teach her some responsibility. I'm not the kind of guy who gets into arguments over the phone, but that got me going. I tried to keep it calm, though. Bill, look, she's been through a lot. I'm not saying I know better than you, but kicking her out without a plan wasn't going to do her any good. She's a kid. She needs a place where she can get back on her feet. He wasn't having it. She's not your responsibility. She's mine. You think you're doing her a favor, but you're undermining what we're trying to teach her. I could feel my patience wearing thin. Well, Bill, if teaching her responsibility means leaving her out to dry, then yeah, I guess I am undermining that. But as long as she's here, she's safe, and she's welcome. We went back and forth for a while, but it was like talking to a brick wall. He just kept repeating the same thing, how it was his job to parent her, how we were overstepping, and how we didn't understand what was best for Alice. Finally, I had enough and just told him, look, man, she's here, and she's staying as long as she wants. If you've got a problem with that, I don't know what to tell you. He hung up after that, and I could tell things were about to get messy. Sure enough, the next day, I started getting calls and texts from other family members. Apparently, Bill and Tanya had been telling everyone that we took Alice away from them, and now they were refusing to come to any more family events unless she was gone. It felt like a slap in the face, to be honest. We'd always been the ones hosting everyone, making sure there was room for all, and now, because we took in Alice, suddenly we were the problem. My wife was livid. She's the kind of person who puts her heart into making people feel welcome, and to have people turning on us like that, it hurt. Aunt Linda was the next to call, and she tried to be more diplomatic about it. You know, it's not that they don't appreciate what you're doing for Alice. They just feel like you're stepping in where you shouldn't. Bill and Tanya have their ways of doing things, and they feel like you're going against them. I just told her straight, Aunt Linda, I'm not trying to start a fight here, but Alice needed a place to go, and we had room. I'm not going to turn her away because Bill and Tanya think it's a bad idea, she sighed, and I could tell she was trying to find some middle ground. Maybe if Alice stayed somewhere else, like a dorm or an apartment, it might help. That way, Bill and Tanya wouldn't feel like you were taking sides. I didn't know what to say to that. It felt like everyone was more worried about keeping the peace with Bill and Tanya than actually thinking about what was best for Alice. And I get it, people don't like conflict, but sometimes you have to stand your ground. I told Aunt Linda that Alice was welcome here as long as she wanted to stay, and that was the end of that conversation. After that, the texts and calls kept coming. A few cousins even said they wouldn't be bringing their kids over anymore, something about how, with gas being so expensive, if not everyone's coming, then it's not worth the trip. It all just sounded like excuses. They were picking sides, plain and simple. But we weren't backing down. My wife and I talked about it for hours one night, just trying to figure out how to handle it all. She was worried about the tension in the family, but she didn't regret helping Alice one bit, and neither did I. We both agreed that, at the end of the day, if we could give Alice a stable place where she felt like she belonged, then it was all worth it, even if some of the family didn't see it that way. Alice, on the other hand, started to notice the shift. She wasn't dumb. She knew her dad was making waves. One night, she asked me, "Is it because of me that they're not coming around?" I didn't want to lie to her. "It's not your fault, Alice. Some people just don't get it, and that's on them, not you." She nodded, and for a second, I saw that same look she had when we picked her up, a mix of relief and uncertainty. I knew we were doing the right thing, but I also knew things were only going to get more complicated from here. After the family drama started, things got real awkward. We were still hosting our usual dinners and events, but instead of the usual crowd filling up the house and camping outside, the place felt half empty. Some of the family just stopped showing up altogether. The ones who did show up, well, it was obvious they felt caught in the middle. A lot of whispering, a lot of awkward glances at Alice, like they were trying to figure out if it was worth the trouble. Alice noticed too. She might not have said much about it, but you could tell. She'd pick at her food during dinner, stay quiet, and look like she was on edge. It's like she was waiting for someone to say something, maybe even to ask her to leave. But my wife and I made sure she knew that wasn't happening. One day, though, we had a gathering planned for my uncle's birthday. It's the kind of event that normally the whole family would show up for. We'd have tables set up outside, the fire pit going, kids running around. It was one of those big deals that everyone looked forward to. But this time, people started dropping out last minute. Cousin Lisa called and said her kids were sick, and they wouldn't be making it. Uncle Tom said something about work being too busy, and Aunt Linda said she wasn't feeling well. It was like everyone suddenly had an excuse. I knew better. They weren't skipping because they had to, they were skipping because of Alice. It pissed me off. I didn't want to say anything to Alice, but my wife saw it on my face. She just gave me that look that said, not in front of her, so I kept my mouth shut and tried to act like everything was fine. When the day came, only a handful of people showed up. We made the best of it, grilled some food, had a small fire going, but you could feel the tension. Everyone was walking on eggshells. At one point, Bill and Tanya showed up, and I knew right away it was going to be a problem. They hadn't been to the farm since Alice moved in, and I could tell from the way Tanya was eyeing her that it wasn't going to be a friendly visit. Bill tried to act all casual at first, talking with some of the family members who were there, but Tanya, she didn't waste any time. She walked right up to me while I was flipping burgers and started in. "You know, this isn't helping anyone," she said, her arms crossed and this tight look on her face. I knew exactly what she was talking about, but I pretended to play dumb. "What do you mean?" She huffed, like she was dealing with a child. "Alice. You keeping her here, it's not doing her any favors, and it's causing all this drama in the family." I set down the spatula and looked her in the eye. "Tanya, we're giving her a place to stay because she needs it. That's all." "Well, Bill and I think it's time she moves on," she said, not even trying to hide her frustration. She's 18 now. She needs to learn how to stand on her own. I could feel the heat rising, and it wasn't from the grill. Stand on her own? You guys kicked her out with no backup plan. That's not teaching her independence, that's abandoning her. At this point, a few people nearby started to quiet down, clearly listening in. Alice was off helping my wife set up some stuff by the barn, but I could see a few family members exchanging looks, like they were gearing up for a front row seat to whatever was about to go down. Tanya leaned in, lowering her voice like she was giving me some kind of warning. Bill and I don't appreciate you getting in the middle of our family business. I wasn't about to back down. Well, maybe if you treated her like family in the first place, I wouldn't have to. That was it. She threw her hands up and walked away, muttering something about how stubborn I was and how we'd regret it. A few minutes later, Bill came up to me. He didn't look happy. You know, we're not trying to be the bad guys here, he said, looking around like he was making sure no one else could hear. But Alice needs to move on. This isn't helping her grow. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Bill, if you really believe that, then why didn't you help her before all this? Why'd you wait until she was 18 to throw her out? He shifted uncomfortably, like he didn't have a good answer for that. It's not that simple. I shook my head. I think it is. And until she's ready to move on, she's staying here. End of story. He didn't say anything else, just gave me this look like I was betraying him or something, and then he walked off. The rest of the night was just as tense. People tried to act like nothing happened, but it was obvious that the whole thing had put a damper on the mood. Bill and Tanya left early, and a few others followed soon after. After they left, my wife pulled me aside. You did the right thing, she said. Don't let them make you feel like you're in the wrong. I nodded, but it still felt like I was stuck in the middle of something I couldn't fix. And the worst part? Alice could tell something was off. After most of the guests had gone and we were cleaning up, she asked me, did they leave because of me? I hated that she felt like she was the cause of all this drama. It's not your fault, Alice. Some people just can't handle it when things don't go their way. She didn't say much after that, just went back to helping clean up, but I could tell she was thinking about it. The look on her face said it all, like she felt guilty for something that wasn't even her fault. The next few days were quiet. Alice kept busy around the farm, and we tried to keep things normal, but I knew this was far from over. We started getting more texts and calls, family members wanting to talk about the situation. It felt like everyone had an opinion on what we were doing. Some of them tried to be polite about it, saying things like, we just want to make sure Alice is okay, but I knew what they really meant. They wanted us to send her away so they could go back to pretending everything was fine. One night, after another round of calls, I sat down with my wife and Alice. I figured it was time we all talked about what was going on. Listen, Alice, I said, I know this is a lot, and I know it's not fair that people are making you feel like it's your fault. She looked down, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Maybe if I wasn't here, things would go back to normal. I shook my head. No, this isn't on you. They're the ones making it complicated. You don't have to worry about any of that. My wife jumped in too. We want you here, Alice. This is your home now, as long as you need it. Alice gave a small nod, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. I didn't blame her. After everything she'd been through, it made sense that she didn't trust easily. But we were determined to show her that she was safe with us. As the days went on, the calls kept coming, and I could tell that this was only the beginning of the family drama. But no matter how many times the phone rang or how many family members tried to push us, I knew one thing for sure, we weren't going to back down. Alice was staying, and we were going to stand by her, even if it meant going against half the family. Things started getting tense around the farm. Alice was still helping out, and she was trying to stay positive, but I could tell the whole situation was wearing on her. My wife and I were doing our best to keep things normal, but when your phone is constantly buzzing with family drama, it's hard to ignore it. Then, one day, we got an unexpected visit from one of my uncles, Uncle Tom. Now, Uncle Tom's always been the type to keep his head down and stay out of family business. He's never taken sides, never stirred up trouble. So, when he showed up at the farm unannounced, I figured something big must be going on. I invited him in, and we sat down at the kitchen table while my wife made some coffee. Right off the bat, he had this look on his face, like he wasn't happy to be there. He shifted in his seat, like he was nervous, and I knew this conversation wasn't going to be a good one. I've been talking to Bill and Tanya, he started, rubbing the back of his neck. They're pretty upset about this whole situation with Alice, I sighed. Yeah, I've heard that before. What's the latest? He hesitated, then said, they're talking about getting the family involved, like everyone. They want to have a meeting, a family intervention basically, to decide what should happen with Alice. I felt my jaw tighten. A family meeting to decide what happens with Alice? She's not some community project, Tom. She's a person. I know, he said quickly. I told them that, but they're convinced that she needs to go back with them, and they think if enough of the family pressures you, you'll change your mind. It felt like a punch to the gut. It was one thing for Bill and Tanya to disagree with us privately, but dragging the entire family into it? That was a new low. So, what, they want to have a vote on whether she gets to stay? Tom shrugged. Something like that. They think if enough people side with them, you'll feel like you have no choice. My wife, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. That's ridiculous. This isn't a democracy. Alice is staying because she needs to, and we're not kicking her out just because some people don't like it. Tom nodded, but he looked uncomfortable. Look, I'm just the messenger here, but they're serious about this. They're planning to have this meeting at Aunt Linda's house next week. It was all starting to click. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. They were trying to turn the whole family against us. I felt my hands ball into fists under the table. So, they think they can gang up on us, and that's going to make us back down? He held up his hands, like he was trying to calm me down. I'm not saying it's right. I just wanted to give you a heads up so you know what's coming. After Uncle Tom left, we sat there for a while, trying to figure out what to do next. My wife suggested that we reach out to a few family members who'd been supportive, just to see if they'd back us up. It wasn't about taking sides, it was about making sure Alice knew she wasn't alone. So, over the next few days, we started reaching out to people. We called Lisa, a cousin who'd been in our corner since the beginning. She was furious when she heard about the planned family meeting. That's ridiculous, she said. They're acting like Alice is some problem they need to fix. She's better off with you, and they know it. We also called a couple of uncles and aunts who had been on the fence before. Some of them were hesitant to take a stand, but a few agreed that what Bill and Tanya were doing was out of line. They promised to show up at Aunt Linda's house and speak up on Alice's behalf if things got ugly. Alice, meanwhile, was trying to act like everything was fine, but I could tell the idea of this family intervention was getting to her. One evening, while we were out feeding the animals, she finally brought it up. Is it true that they're having a meeting about me? She asked, her voice quiet. I nodded. Yeah, it's true, but we're not going to let them make you do anything you don't want to do. She looked down at her boots, kicking at the dirt. I just don't get why they're so determined to make me leave. They didn't want me when I was living there. I put a hand on her shoulder. It's not about you, Alice. It's about them wanting to control the situation. They don't like that we made a choice they don't agree with, she sighed. I don't want to cause more problems. You're not the problem, I said firmly. They are, and we're going to stand by you no matter what. The next week, the day of the so-called intervention came around. We knew we had to show up, even if we didn't want to. If we stayed away, they'd probably take that as us backing down. So, we got in the truck and headed to Aunt Linda's. When we walked in, the tension was thick. Almost the entire family was there, cousins, uncles, aunts, everyone. Bill and Tanya were sitting at the head of the table, looking like they were in charge of some big meeting. Alice stayed close to my wife, clearly uncomfortable. I could see the worried looks from a few of the relatives who'd promised to back us up. Bill stood up, acting all official. Thanks, everyone, for coming. We're here to discuss what's best for Alice. I rolled my eyes. What's best for Alice, or what's best for you? Tanya jumped in. This isn't about us. It's about making sure Alice has a stable future, and we think that means coming back home. My wife crossed her arms. You mean back to the home she was kicked out of? Bill ignored that and started talking about how the family needed to unite and how this division was tearing everyone apart. It was all just a bunch of words to make themselves look like they were the victims. A few of our cousins spoke up, but it was clear Bill and Tanya had managed to get most of them on their side. Just as things were heating up, Lisa stood up. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice steady. Alice has a home. She's safe, she's loved, and she's doing well. If you really cared about her, you'd be supporting her, not trying to force her into a situation she doesn't want. A few others nodded, but most stayed quiet. I could tell it was going to be an uphill battle. Bill kept pushing, talking about how we were isolating Alice and making her dependent on us. It was all nonsense, but he was saying it with enough confidence that some people seemed to believe him. Finally, I'd had enough. I stood up and said, this isn't a democracy. Alice is an adult, and she's made her choice. We're not here to debate that. If you don't like it, that's your problem. There was a long silence, and then, one by one, people started leaving the room. Some gave us nods of support, others just walked past without a word. Bill and Tanya stayed put, glaring at us. We're not done with this, Bill said as we turned to leave. Yeah, Well, we are, I shot back. We left, and on the way home, Alice looked relieved for the first time in weeks. We knew it wasn't over, but at least she knew we had her back, no matter what the family decided. We were getting closer to the start of Alice's university classes, and things seemed like they were finally settling down a bit. She'd been working hard on the farm, getting things done, and it felt like she was finding her rhythm. My wife and I were trying to stay positive, figuring that once Alice started classes, maybe all this family drama would die down a bit. We thought that if she was in a good place and had a routine, maybe Bill and Tanya would back off. Then, just when we thought we could finally take a breath, my phone rang. It was Bill. I knew I shouldn't have answered, but a part of me hoped maybe, just maybe, he was calling to find some middle ground. Maybe he'd realized how much this whole thing was stressing Alice out, and he was ready to work things out. I should have known better. "Hey, man," I said, keeping my tone neutral. He didn't bother with a greeting. "I heard Alice is getting therapy," he said, his voice cold. "Yeah, she is," I replied, already feeling the tension creeping in. "She's been through a lot. She needs someone to talk to." "Well, I don't know why you think that's necessary," he snapped. "We raised her fine. She doesn't need therapy." I couldn't believe it. "Bill, she's been kicked out of her home. She's been dealing with a lot of stuff, and she needs support." "Support?" He scoffed. "Or are you just feeding into her behavior, making her think she's a victim?" That was it for me. I tried to keep my cool, but it was hard. "Bill, I'm not feeding into anything. She's got a chance to get some help and move forward. If you can't see that, then maybe you're part of the problem." Silence. I could almost hear him grinding his teeth through the phone. "You've changed, you know that? You used to respect family. Now you're just creating division." That line hit hard. I'd always been about family. My wife and I built this whole place for family gatherings, for everyone to come together, and now he was acting like I was the one tearing things apart. It felt like a slap in the face, but I wasn't going to back down. "Bill, I'm doing what I think is right. You don't have to agree with it, but Alice is welcome here. We're not sending her away just because it makes things uncomfortable for you." He hung up, and I just sat there for a minute, trying to collect my thoughts. It felt like everything we'd done for Alice, everything we were trying to build, was being used against us. I was mad, but mostly, I felt tired, like no matter what we did, someone was always going to find a way to twist it into something negative. Later that night, I sat down with my wife to talk about it. We knew that once Alice started her classes, things were going to change. She'd have her own routine, and maybe, just maybe, the family would back off once they realized she was doing okay. My wife suggested we throw one more small gathering before Alice's classes kicked off, just to show her that we were proud of her and that she had a support system here. So, we planned a simple dinner, invited a few close family members, just the ones who had been supportive, and set it up to be more of a quiet celebration for Alice. We didn't want her to feel like she was on her own, even if some of the family didn't see it that way. The night of the dinner, everything was going smoothly. A few of my cousins showed up, and a couple of aunts and uncles too. It was nice, and for a moment, it almost felt like old times. Alice seemed happy, laughing and talking with everyone. For once, it felt like we could actually have a normal night without any drama. But of course, that didn't last long. Just as we were finishing up dinner, I saw Bill's car pulling up the driveway. I knew right away this wasn't going to be a friendly visit. He hadn't been to the farm since the whole thing started, and him showing up now felt like a bad sign. He got out of the car, and Tanya was with him. They walked up to the house, and you could feel the tension in the air. A few of my cousins exchanged nervous looks, and Alice went quiet, her smile fading as soon as she saw them. My wife and I exchanged a look, and I knew we were thinking the same thing. This wasn't going to end well. Bill didn't waste any time. He walked right up to us, and with everyone watching, he said, "We need to talk. Now." I stayed calm, trying to keep things civil. "All right, let's step aside and talk privately." He shook his head. "No, we're doing this here, in front of everyone." Tanya was standing right beside him, arms crossed, looking like she was ready for a fight. I glanced over at Alice, who was watching with this look of dread on her face. I could tell she was expecting the worst, and honestly, so was I, but I wasn't about to let Bill make a scene in front of everyone. "Fine," I said, crossing my arms. "What's this about?" Bill took a deep breath, like he was gearing up for a speech. "We've given this a lot of thought, and we think it's time for Alice to come home." The whole room went silent. I could see a few people looking around, confused. Alice looked shocked, and I could tell she didn't know what to say. I was just as surprised as she was. After all this time, now they wanted her back? Tanya nodded, stepping forward. We think it's best if she comes back to live with us. We want to fix things as a family. Alice stayed quiet, staring down at her plate. My wife put a hand on her shoulder, giving her a reassuring squeeze. I didn't know what Bill and Tanya were playing at, but I wasn't about to let them bully Alice into going back. She's staying here, Bill. We've been through this already. Bill's face hardened. We don't want her here anymore. She belongs with us. Alice finally spoke up, her voice quiet but steady. I don't want to go back. She looked up, meeting her dad's eyes for the first time. You only want me back now because you don't want to look bad in front of the family. Tanya's face twisted in anger. How dare you talk to us like that? Alice didn't back down. You kicked me out. You didn't care where I went or what happened to me. Now you show up here, acting like everything's fine. Bill's expression was hard to read, but I could tell he was losing patience. We're your family, Alice. You can't just run away from that. My wife stood up, her voice calm but firm. She's not running away from anything. She's trying to start fresh, and we're supporting her. Tanya rolled her eyes. Oh, so now you two think you're her saviors, huh? This is why the family is divided, because you keep interfering. I'd had enough. Interfering? You kicked her out. We gave her a place to stay because that's what family is supposed to do. Bill shook his head, looking around at everyone, like he was trying to rally support. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Alice belongs with us, and you need to stop undermining that. I felt my hands clenching into fists, but I tried to stay calm. Alice is staying here, and that's final. Bill looked like he was about to argue, but then something seemed to shift. He just stared at me for a moment, then turned to Alice. Fine, stay here. But don't expect us to keep trying. We're done with that. He turned and walked away, Tanya following behind him. The silence in the room was heavy, and I could tell everyone was processing what just happened. Alice just sat there, staring at her plate, and I could see the tears starting to form in her eyes. My wife and I didn't push her to talk about it. We just sat with her, letting her know that, no matter what, we were there for her. It wasn't the ending we'd hoped for, but at least now she knew who really had her back.